One thing I wanted to bring up, I forgot to bring up as we're moving into Bass. He mentions he called himself Kote. He had chosen the name carefully when he came to this place. He had taken a new name for most of the usual reasons and for a few unusual ones as well, not the least of which was the fact that names were important to him. That's obviously huge. That's going to play in big time. What are the usual reasons? You're in hiding, that you don't want to be found. You want to keep your name secret. What are the unusual ones? Why is he changing his name? Obviously when you hear about names and you hear how powerful they are, and you see when he talks about Denna constantly changing her name, and he tells that to Elodin like goes into panic mode. It's like Fella changed her name. She wouldn't do that. And he's like, no, not Fella. And he's like, do you change your name? He's like, no, it's not me. And so, like, Elodin was in panic at the idea that they would change their true name. And then he finds out, it's your calling name. Oh, okay. And then he backs up. So we know there's major power in changing your name. And there's a sense that it's dangerous to do something like that. It would be idiotic. But Kvothe has, and he's changed his name, and he says he's did it for the unusual reasons, so that would make you think that it has something to do with what made Elodin panic, that he has done something like that.
Yeah, I'm interested in the last line of that that paragraph where it says he's done it for not the usual reasons, not the least of which names are important to him. So Kote, the name Kote itself, maybe he's shielding himself from the cold. I don't know. It's
Well, here's the biggest piece we know about what Kote means. When there's a scene where Kote's talking to Master Kilvin, and I believe it's right after Kote rescued Fella from the fire in the fishery. If you guys, I'm sure you guys remember the story. It's a massive story in the first book. So fishery catches on fire, and Kote saves Fella, and then when he goes back to the fishery, Kilvin brings him into his office. Kilvin says, Chayin, Bayan, Aiden, Kote. And Kvothe only gets part of it, 7 years, but admits to not knowing the meaning of Kote. And then Kilvin translates it for us. He says it's expect disaster every 7 years. So this suggests that Kote means disaster, because we already know Chan means 7. So he changed his name to Disaster.
Like a wrestler, like Master of Disaster. Like he's trying to prepare himself for something good.
Yeah.
It's like Earthquake.
Yeah, that's one way to take it. I think it's likely a more darker, a darker path than a fun wrestler name. But yeah, that at least means something. You change your name, you're gonna pick any name you want, and you change it to Disaster.
But yes, it does seem very. There's a heavy weight on this young man, Kote, who sometimes is young, sometimes is old. We also get that on the same page where he's turning the bottles, and it's making him seem much younger. Certainly not yet 30.
Yeah, it seems like it goes back and forth. Like he'll be sitting there doing one thing, and then all of a sudden he'll look at that box, and he turns into this wrinkly man, but a stressed and weather-worn person.
It talks about a few times easing a few tired lines from his face, or these tired lines come back. And yeah, it's interesting. This will play out more, but yeah, he keeps doing this. Well, yeah, I mean, he even goes young for an innkeeper, young for a man with so many tired lines remaining on his face.
Yeah, you get the first few mentions.
How old is he?
That we'll find out he's probably in the range of around 25, but we don't know exactly, because we don't know how long he was in the Fae with Florian, how much he aged there, and had he gone back. So we don't know. But in that range of like 25, less than 30. But we get our first like kind of just sprinkled in a little bit about the difference between Kote the innkeeper versus Kvothe the hero. There's a huge dynamic between his personality and his appearance as Kote, and his personality and his appearance as Kvothe. And you don't know he's Kvothe yet at this point, but you start to get a sense that he's in hiding, and there's a difference between who he's portraying to be versus who he actually is. And that's obviously going to play a huge role as we move along.
We seem to get a little sample of him opening up, and he even has like a little fun with Bast, right? They kind of joke around a little bit.
Yeah.
Until that, he is not that guy at all. He's not joking. He's barely speaking. He's depressed, until that moment. And their little back and forth, the little nickname, Reshi and all that stuff, it definitely widens him to a huge degree. And just the existence of Bast completely changes everything.
Yeah.